Hi, welcome back to another video. So today I'd like to show you 10 amazing obscure prog rock albums from the UK. These are all my personal opinion and all ones that I've collected myself over the years. It's all very subjective. As I say, they are obscure and underground prog rock albums, so don't expect anything by the likes of Pink Floyd, Yes, Genesis, King Crimson, anyone like that. And also I could easily put in amazing albums by what I'd call the second division or second tier prog rock bands, such as Caravan, Gentle Giant, Edgar Broughton, Atomic Rooster, but I've stuck with the ones that were relatively unheard of and reasonably obscure at the time. They're in no specific order. Also, I did want to make this a kind of a definitive list, like a top 10 list. As soon as the list was made, I immediately thought of another 10 which just should be on the list. So if this thing works out, there will probably be a part 2. They're in no specific order. So here we go, let's take a look. So first off, we've got the self-titled album by Affinity. This is an absolutely amazing one. I would say it's their only album proper. There are several releases after this which are like outtakes which are on CD, but as far as actual proper albums are concerned, this is the only one. Musically, it's absolutely superb. It features female singer Linda Hoyle, who's got an incredible voice, exquisite voice, amazing range. The music itself is very dominated by the Hammond organ throughout, and it's just interesting that the entire record is mostly made up of cover versions. There's only 2 actual original compositions on this record. One of the cover versions is like about 11 or 12 minute long version of All Along the Watchtower, which is absolutely brilliant and closes the record, but the entire thing throughout is brilliant. This is it's an original German one on the Vertigo label. Lots of great stuff on that label. It costs a fraction of what the UK's pressings go for. It has been issued in lots of different countries and has been reissued recently, put out on CD, and would be available on streaming. So it is easily obtainable without spending too much of a fortune. So there we are, Affinity. Right, next up we've got a band that's not always talked about so much in the prog rock circles. It's Jonesy. This is their debut record called No Alternative. So Jonesy actually released 3 albums, although there is a 4th one as well, which is I don't know if it's outtakes or like an unreleased one, but there's 3 albums proper. This, as I say, this is their debut and this is my favourite. Musically, we're talking very, very King Crimson influenced. The first 2 tracks, I would actually say, could almost be described as a carbon copy of In the Court of the Crimson King. The opening track sounds very like 21st Century Schizoid Man. Track 2 sounds like I Talk to the Wind. However, they really have their own unique sound. There's a lot of aggressive guitar playing on this, loads and loads of mellotrons, great vocals, and it is really an obscure one to check out. So that's No Alternative by Jonesy. Incidentally, their other 2 albums that follow are very good. They're more in a Genesis vein, a lot more symphonic, but still very, very good and well worth checking out. Next up, we've got self-titled album by Samurai. It's from 1972. So this is their only album. However, it is actually technically the 4th album by a band called The Web. They actually changed their name to Samurai for the 4th record, or the only one by Samurai, whichever way you want to look at it. The Web started out, they were a bit directionless on their first 2 records, to be honest with you. They had quite a unique sound to them, but the compositions, yeah, it just didn't quite work. For their 3rd record, they got in a composer and vocalist called Dave Lawson. He later joined Greenslade, but it completely improved the sound and just made them much more progressive. They produced a great album called I Spider, which isn't featured in this list, but is really, really good. But then they came out with this. it's a very, very dark record indeed, not just musically but lyrically. I don't tend to listen to lyrics an awful lot. I'm more of a music person, but the lyrics to me seem to really stick out. They're very sort of obscure and off the wall and go very well with the music. There's lots of great percussion on this one, lots of great Hammond, there's lots of great horns, flute playing. It's a great record all in all. It's one of my weirder ones actually, because it was released in the UK. Original pressings are expensive. Germany as well, which is quite normal, but at the time in 1972 it was also pressed in Uruguay for some reason, and that's the actual version that I've got on the London label there. Quite why it was pressed there I don't know, it seems a bit random to me, but there we are. There's something a bit unusual. Like Affinity, it's been reissued an awful lot officially, CD and vinyl, so it can be obtainable without spending a fortune. Right, next up, this is really underrated, this one. This is called Bump and Grind by Jackson Heights. Now, this was also released on Vertigo. It was in 1973, so it's not, well, not in the UK anyway. It wasn't actually on the Swell label. And if it was, I think it would actually get a lot more attention. This is the fourth album by Jackson Heights. The others are very, very good. Their second album in particular is called Fifth Avenue Buses. Excellent, absolutely brilliant. But this tops it for me. This is more of a commercial record, much more commercial side of prog, almost poppy in a way. However, the production on it is exquisite. It's so varied. There's orchestras going on, all sorts of instrumentation, despite the fact that they are quite conventional songs. Exquisite vocal harmonies. And it's just a real shame that this didn't do anything at all, because it's like a kitchen sink production. It really is. As I said at the start, I got loads of these over the years, but I only got this one last year, and as soon as I started playing it I was hooked, and I've been playing it a lot ever since. So it comes highly recommended. Bump and Grind by Jackson Heights. Right, next up we have got one by Big Sleep called Bluebell Wood. Right, like Samurai, this is another name change. Big Sleep were originally called The Eyes of Blue, a Welsh band who were sort of fairly big on the Welsh circuit. They had two albums before this. Their second album was very, very good. I haven't actually heard their first one, so I can't comment on that. I don't really know why they changed their name to Big Sleep. I personally think it's a bit of a come down after Eyes of Blue. It's a weird name, but there we go. Anyway, this is another really, really dark record. It is excellent. Side one just seems to be, all I would call it is just deep, deep despair. The songs are actually quite depressing in a way. Really, really grey, but they're just so good. And on side two, it all of a sudden just gets more and more upbeat. Like a lot of these records, there's some great Hammond playing on there. Nicely produced. Lots of different vocals. I think every member of the band actually sings on this. This also includes John Weathers, who later joined Gentle Giant and Man on drums. He composes and sings a couple of tunes. This one here, this is an original pressing, UK, lucky to have this. And I'm a sucker for a great record label. That's on Pegasus. Look at that. That is absolutely fantastic. There's a good few albums on this label. So again, highly recommended. Big Sleep, Bluebell Wood. Oh, now this one. This is absolutely fantastic. This is by High Tide, and it's called Sea Shanties. Now, despite the name, I can promise you there's no kind of drunken sailor style songs on this. This was brought out in 1969. All I can say is for 1969, where the UK and the world really, I suppose, was still in the grips of psychedelia, this is just so heavy. As soon as on the first track, the guitar this distorted guitar just bursts in. I remember when I first put this on, I was absolutely floored. It really was love at first listen. But there's amazing interplay throughout. It's got Simon House, who later joined Hawkwind. He's on violin. The vocalist and guitarist Tony Hill, to me, to my mind, he sounds like a cross between Jim Morrison and John Wetton. It is a remarkable record for its time. Bear in mind it was about the same time that King Crimson came out and a year before Sabbath. But it is even heavier than those two. It's quite remarkable and quite ahead of its time, and why it didn't get more recognition at the time is anyone's guess. Anyway, this is an original. It's on the Blue Liberty label, and just comes highly recommended. Their second album as well, self-titled, their second record, it's also great. Not quite as great as this in my opinion, but it's slightly more progressive. So there we go, High Tide Sea Shanties. Here we go, we've got another heavy one. Right, this is by T2. It's original on Decca, and it's called It'll All Work Out in Boomland. Again, this one is dominated by heavy guitars, really, really heavy distorted guitars. For 1970, this was, well into the hard rock vein, but I think it's got enough experimentation and kind of production to call it a prog rock record. There's only 4 tracks on it. They're nice long tracks. Again, this is kind of a one and done record, but they did release. There is an unreleased album that was released later on down the line, and then they have done several outtakes albums, but this one is really the only album proper. It's dominated by the guitar. Wonderful production. It's got even some orchestra in the background in places, some horns that don't sort of overpower it and work very, very well. Standout piece would be side 2, which is just one long track called Morning. This is a very, very popular one in general. Anyone who's into their prog or their underground prog will like this one. And I do need to get a better copy. This is a playable one, but it is a bit worn. So, but never mind, it's still good. Right, this one is definitely not talked about enough. This is a band called Carmen. It's their first album called Fandangos in Space. This is absolutely unique. I've never ever heard anything like this before or since, quite frankly. This band mixes progressive rock with Spanish style flamenco. Simple as that. And the results are absolutely brilliant. The production on this, which is by Tony Visconti, who later, I wouldn't say actually later, it's probably around the same time, he was involved with Bowie and Bolan and the likes. He does an incredible job. The music is very, very dramatic. It's bonkers at times really. But as I say, the production works so well on this. There's loads and loads of percussion going on, brilliant vocals, loads of like Moog synthesizer. It is a really, really great prog record. This particular one, I don't know if you can see the price label on that. It is not pricey to get hold of. I mean, that was a decent price, £15 I paid for that. But it does turn up from time to time and has been issued in several countries. It's not what I would call a rarity, but it's definitely an obscurity. And there are so many people I've spoken to who just have never heard the record. But it is amazing. It's sonically brilliant. It bursts out of the speakers or headphones. If you're playing it on a half decent system, it could almost be like a hi-fi demonstration record. It is that good. So there we go. Carmen's Fandangos in Space. And I did show their second album on an earlier video, which is not quite as good, not as good as that. Right, here we go. It's a great one. By Fantasy, called Paint a Picture. I should add, not an original. I'd love an original, and they are incredibly expensive. This is I think the first time it's reissued. This is on Second Battle Records. We've done something in conjunction with Polydor by the looks of it. I don't know how that worked. This is more of a symphonic record. It's the lighter side of prog. Very, very, very good indeed. Lovely compositions. They don't ever get too heavy, but don't let that put you off. You could sort of compare them to things like Caravan in a way, maybe a bit of Barclay James, the early Barclay James Harvest records, but it's built up a great reputation over the years. As I say, very, very symphonic, quite a bit of Hammond, lots of Mellotrons, and comes highly recommended. Again, this has been reissued several times officially on vinyl and CD, so it's easy to pick up. So there we go. And finally, we have got this Quatermass One and Only album. Now this is a popular one, and I've been into this for many years. It's on Harvest Records, which is my favourite label. This is the only album they ever did. I do believe they started recording a second album, and there is a single released actually with tracks that are not on this, but they called it a day, which is such a shame. This sleeve is absolutely brilliant. I will get the whole thing out and show you that. It's done by Hypnosis. Excuse me, but that is wonderful. So here we've got a classic organ, bass and drum trio. The musicianship is absolutely off the scale good, really good, and tremendously good vocals. All three musicians just play their hearts out on this, and the compositions are absolutely great. This is a German original. The UK originals are pretty pricey. I wouldn't actually call this much of a rare record, to be honest with you. I've seen copies of this all the time, but they seem to go for a lot. Excuse me, sorry. And that I think is quite a testament to how good it is. This is a popular record. It's been loved by prog fans, so it is obscure at the end of the day. It's not as well known as some, but it is obscure enough to feature in this video. So that comes highly recommended. So there we have it. As I say, that is not a definitive list at all. I sat and wrote that list and looked and thought, yeah, that's great. And then throughout the rest of the evening, 10 more popped into my head, which should have made the cut, but I was strict about this, so I'm probably going to make a part 2 video showing 10 more of these. As I say, these are there are a lot of original pressings, but you don't have to fork out too much for these if you don't want to. If you go for non-UK pressings, they can be had for a fraction of the price. Most of them will have official reissues, so it can be easily heard. They're all highly recommended, and yeah, in my opinion, if you're into your prog rock, they need to be heard. If you are bang into your prog rock, you've probably heard a lot of these anyway, or may even own them. I'd love to hear your comments on these. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, please, always up for a debate. If you've got anything that you'd like to recommend me, please put it in the comments. What are your 10 favourite obscure UK albums? I would love to hear from you. So there's going to be a lot more content like this to come in the future. So if you can hit the like button, please subscribe for more content. Check out my past videos. And as I say, I'll see you again in another video. So take care.